David Green is a name that the business world respects. As CEO of GreenTech, a leading corporation in the field of sustainable technology, David took the company from a small startup to a multi-billion-dollar giant. With a reputation as a sharp and strategic leader, he has been honored in prestigious magazines, received countless awards, and been invited to speak at international conferences. However, hidden behind that flashy appearance is another reality that few people know: a feeling of emptiness and loneliness. David lives in a luxurious penthouse in the city center, where everything is designed to show off his success. From the living room with its high ceilings and large glass windows overlooking the city, to the multi-million-dollar art collection hanging along the hallway, it all exudes luxury. However, every night when he returned home, David felt a strange emptiness. He lost connection to what once made him passionate about his work. One Monday morning, David walked into his large office at GreenTech headquarters. The imported walnut table is neatly placed, with the latest financial reports neatly arranged. On the table, an unnamed envelope was placed alone. Curious, David opened it and read the carefully typed words. "Dear Mr. Green, I don't know if he really cares, but I feel the need to say it. GreenTech, under the leadership of middle managers, is becoming a toxic workplace. Employees are exploited, management is unfair, and the working atmosphere is stuffy. We used to be proud of the values the company stood for, but now those values are just words. I hope you'll pay attention before it's too late." The letter had no signature, but each sentence and each word was like a knife stabbing straight into David's heart. He felt shocked. How could the company he built from the first days fall into such a situation? David wondered if this was true or just the slander of a disgruntled employee. David couldn't get the letter out of his mind. He spent the whole afternoon thinking, if what is in the letter is true, then GreenTech's management system clearly failed. But how can he find out the truth without being discovered? Testing through internal reports or surveys may not yield honest results. Then a crazy idea flashed in his mind. Why not experience it for yourself? David decides to disguise himself as a cleaner, a job that few people pay attention to, so that he can access real life in the company without anyone knowing who he is. He realized that, to understand the core issues, he needed to get out of the position of a CEO and step down to where ordinary workers were working. The decision was made, but implementation was not easy. First, David went to a professional makeup company to change his appearance. He chose a dull brown wig, black-framed glasses, and added some fake wrinkles to his face. He also learned how to change his voice from his usual majestic demeanor to a gentle, humble voice. Next, David contacted the Human Resources Department through a trusted friend, asking them to arrange a cleaning staff position for him at a small branch in the suburbs where no one knew his real identity. He named himself Daniel Greenberg, a middle-aged man who had just experienced a long period of unemployment. Giving up familiar comforts is also a big challenge. David had to buy ordinary clothes, old shoes, and a cheap backpack. He temporarily left his penthouse and rented a small, simple apartment near the branch where he would work. When he looked around his new apartment, with its old furniture and cramped space, he felt a clear difference. This is the life of many employees in the company that he has never fully understood. On the first day of work, David felt his heart beating faster than ever. He wore a cleaning uniform, a baseball cap that obscured his face, and entered the GreenTech branch building as a new employee. No one paid attention to him, something he had never experienced as CEO. This both relieved him and made him feel strange. David was quickly introduced to the job by a junior manager who seemed less than enthusiastic. After receiving the working tools, He was assigned the task of cleaning the administrative area and meeting room. As he held the mop in his hand, David felt a strange mixture of confusion and determination. Every corner of the office he passes, every conversation he overhears, brings small pieces of the overall picture of the company. David begins to realize that the anonymous letter is not completely baseless. The complaints, the tired looks, and the tense atmosphere spoke volumes. David knows that this journey is not only to discover the truth, but also to face himself. The person who once built GreenTech with full of aspirations, but now feels alienated from his own star child, his God. In the following days, he was ready to face painful truths and begin the journey to regain lost core values. His first days as a cleaner made David Green realize a completely different reality about GreenTech, one he had never imagined before. David started his workday very early, when the sun was just rising. He put on a simple blue uniform, an old baseball cap, and quietly walked through the glass door of the GreenTech branch in the suburbs. The hallway is lit, but deserted. A strange feeling arose in him, both anxiety and excitement. The first person he met was Linda, a veteran cleaner who had worked here for more than 10 years. Linda is a woman about 50 years old, with a petite figure but energetic eyes. Linda was David's guide on the first day. She showed him how to use tools, from mops to vacuum cleaners, and how to clean stubborn stains on the office floor. "Don't worry, Daniel," Linda said in a friendly tone. "This job is not too difficult, but it requires patience. We not only clean up dirt, but also bring comfort to others, although sometimes they never pay attention to it." David nodded, feeling the warmth of Linda's words. But soon after, when he started work upstairs, another image surprised him. In a hidden corner near the conference room, a young employee named Alex was sitting, his head resting on the desk. The dark circles under his eyes and his tired appearance said it all. "Alex, are you okay?" Linda asked, looking worried. "It's just, last night I worked until midnight to submit the report in time, but this morning the manager said it didn't meet the requirements and asked to redo the whole thing," Alex replied, his voice filled with boredom. "Don't even pay any extra money for overtime." David stood still, feeling a dull anger. The numbers on the financial statements that he often read did not reveal hidden corners like this. Employees like Alex go above and beyond, but are underappreciated. Throughout the day, David met many other people. There's Maria, a single mother who works in customer service, always trying her best to finish her work before rushing home to pick up her children. There is Peter, a new IT employee, always worried about being reprimanded by his manager, even though he tried his best. From their story, David began to understand that behind GreenTech's modern appearance was a cold and inconsiderate management system. In the afternoon, David was assigned the task of cleaning the middle management work area. He met Paul, who was responsible for supervising the team at this branch. Paul is a man in his 40s, with a dashing appearance but an arrogant attitude. When he saw David, Paul glanced over with disdain. "Be careful when cleaning the floor," Paul said without looking directly at David. "I don't want to hear any more complaints from other managers about your team." David suppressed his discomfort and just nodded silently. He observed how Paul interacted with employees, noticing a clear lack of respect. Paul often raised his voice at his subordinates, asking them to overwork but never offering any support or encouragement. It's not all negative, though. In the cleaning team, David gradually felt a strange connection. Linda often tells funny stories about her working days, making everyone laugh and calming the tense atmosphere. Maria sometimes brings homemade snacks to share with colleagues. Those small moments made David feel a glimmer of hope. One evening after work, David sat with Linda on a bench in the yard to rest. Linda told him about the difficult time when her husband lost his job, and she had to raise the family alone. She talked about the sacrifices she had to make so her daughter could go to college, and the times she thought about giving up but didn't allow herself to do so. "We work for hope, Daniel," Linda said, looking distant, "even though sometimes hope is just a small ray of light in the darkness." David said nothing, just nodded. But deep inside, he felt a turmoil in his heart. Stories like those of Linda, Alex, and Maria made him realize that GreenTech had strayed from the values he once wanted to build. He dreamed of creating a company that was not only profitable, but also a place where people could feel proud to work. But the reality now is completely opposite. David's first days as a cleaner taught him many things. He not only saw the difficulties his employees faced, but also understood that the gap between him and them was much greater than he had thought. Faced with that reality, David knew that he needed to do something, not only to save the company, but also to save himself. In the following days, David gradually noticed Maria, a customer service representative. Maria is not like the other people in the office. Her petite figure and tied hair make her look younger than her real age, but her eyes always have a hint of fatigue. She often arrives early, leaves late, and always tries her best to complete her work, even though she is often criticized by her manager. Maria lives in a small apartment with her 7-year-old son, Ethan. Her husband passed away in an accident a few years ago, leaving her to shoulder all the responsibilities. The job at GreenTech is Maria's only source of income, but her meager salary and harsh work pressure make her life increasingly difficult. One morning, while mopping the floor near Maria's work area, David overheard her manager, a man named Richard, loudly criticizing her. "Maria, how many times have I told you to handle customer complaints faster? You can't just spend all day dealing with a few calls. If you don't improve, I will consider replacing you with someone else." Maria bowed her head and apologized, her voice soft. "I'm sorry, sir. I will try to be faster." David looked at that scene with a heavy heart. He used to think that GreenTech's management system was one of the company's strongest points, but now he sees it has turned into an emotionless machine where employees are treated like numbers on a board. Statistical. Later that day, when everyone left the office, David saw Maria still sitting, eyes glued to the computer screen. He approached, pretended to clean the floor nearby, and started a conversation. "Hello, Maria. Today must be a very long day, right?" Maria raised her head and smiled tiredly. "Yes, but it's the same as every other day. The work here is always demanding like that." "Work seems very stressful," David suggested. Maria sighed, her voice tinged with sadness. "Actually, work is not the problem. I like this job, like the feeling of helping customers, but sometimes I feel like no one really cares about my efforts. Management only looks at results, never listens to the reasons behind the numbers." David felt the sincerity in her words. He asked more about Maria's life and learned that every morning she had to take Ethan to school before going to work, and in the evening she had to rush home to prepare dinner and help her child study. On weekends, instead of resting, Maria often works overtime to earn extra income, but most of that money is spent on paying Ethan's rent and tuition. "Ethan loves learning to draw," Maria shares, her eyes shining with pride. "The boy said he wanted to become an artist in the future. I just hope I can give my children a better life. But sometimes it feels like I'm running and never reaching the finish line." David was silent, his heart aching. Maria is one of the employees that his system ignored, people who worked silently, sacrificed for the company, but did not receive the attention they deserved. She is not only an employee, but also a mother who is carrying the whole family on her small shoulders. In the days that followed, David observed Maria more. He found that she not only did her job well, but was also always willing to help her colleagues. Once, when a new employee had difficulty handling a customer complaint, Maria spent her lunch break instructing him on how to resolve it. But those efforts never seemed to be recognized. David also begins to realize that Maria is not alone. GreenTech's system has turned the company into a place where people like Maria have no voice. Managers only care about the end result, without considering individual efforts or circumstances. This not only lowers employee morale, but also creates a toxic work environment. One evening, David decided to meet Maria during break. He brought 2 cups of coffee and sat down at the table next to her. "Maria, I'm just a cleaner, but I think you're one of the hardest working people here. Have you ever thought that you deserve to be treated better?" Maria looked at him, slightly surprised by this sudden concern. "Thank you, Daniel, but I think I have no other choice. I need this job, and there's nothing I can do but keep trying." Maria's words were a wake-up call for David. He realized that, as CEO, he was so focused on growth and profits that he forgot about the people who truly create value for the company. The system he built not only lacked flexibility, but also lacked empathy. In the following days, David continued to listen to other employees' stories, but it was Maria who impressed him the most. She is the embodiment of the difficulties and injustices that many employees are facing, and is also the motivation for him to rethink his way of operating. David begins to change. He no longer sees employees as numbers in a report, but as people with stories, dreams, and difficulties. He realized that for GreenTech to truly thrive, the company needed to become a place where everyone felt heard and valued. That is not only good for employees, but also a sustainable foundation for the company's long-term success. That morning started like any other normal day at the GreenTech branch. The cleaning staff arrives early, quietly preparing for a new day. David, in his role as Daniel Greenberg, is used to walking through quiet hallways, cleaning every corner of the office without anyone noticing. But today, there is something different in the air. Loud arguing sounds came from the warehouse area, where goods and office equipment were stored. David hurried over, only to witness a tense confrontation between Paul, the branch manager, and Alex, the young employee David had met in the early days. "Who do you think you are to disobey me?" Paul shouted loudly, his face red. "I asked you to work overtime to double-check all orders, but you refused?" Alex, clearly at the limit of his tolerance, replied with a shaky but determined voice. "I've been working overtime all week without being paid any extra money. I can't continue like this anymore. I have a family. I need time off." Other employees had gathered around, whispering. David stood at the edge of the crowd, observing the situation. Paul became increasingly louder, threatening to fire Alex if he did not obey orders. The atmosphere became suffocatingly tense. Suddenly, a loud noise rang out from the warehouse. A shelf filled with office equipment toppled over, boxes of paper and materials falling to the floor. Screams rang out as people hurriedly ran away. A female employee tripped and was almost hit by boxes. David didn't have time to think and rushed to pull her out of the danger zone. In that chaotic moment, his cap fell off, revealing his true face. Several employees recognized him immediately. "Is that Mr. Green, CEO of GreenTech?" one person exclaimed, surprised. Silence covered the room. All eyes were on David. Paul, who had just raised his voice at Alex, turned pale. Alex looked at David, half surprised, half angry. You are the CEO?" Alex stammered. And yet, you work as a cleaning staff? Are you following us?" David picked up the cap and let out a long breath. He knew this was an inevitable moment. Standing in front of a crowd of confused employees, he decided to tell the truth. "Yes," David began, his voice calm but filled with emotion. "I'm David Green, CEO of GreenTech. And yes, I worked here as a cleaner. Not to monitor or judge anyone, but to understand what's going on in my own company." The silence lasted. A few people looked uncomfortable and whispered to each other. Maria, who had known and shared her story with David, looked at him with eyes full of disappointment. "Why didn't you tell us from the beginning?" Maria asked, her voice filled with hurt. "You made us trust you, but it was all a lie." David felt his heart sink. He knew that this truth would hurt everyone, but he had no choice but to be honest. "I know you feel betrayed, and I'm sorry for that," David said, his eyes flickering over each of them. "But if I don't, I will never understand what you are going through. I heard your stories, saw the difficulties this system has created, and realized that I, too, am part of the problem." His words seemed to relieve some of the tension. A few people began to listen, their eyes softening. David continued, his voice growing stronger. "I have seen your efforts go unrecognized, your overtime hours unpaid, and the unfair ways you are treated. I heard the story of Maria, a single mother trying to do everything for her son. I saw Alex, a young employee full of potential, but oppressed by unnecessary pressure. All of this is my responsibility, and I am committed to change." Alex looked at David, his eyes still a bit skeptical. "You said you would change, but how can we trust you after everything that happened?" David took a step forward, facing Alex directly. "I don't expect you to believe me right now, but I will prove it with actions. From today, I will work with you to rebuild GreenTech. We will right the wrongs of this system and make it a place where everyone feels respected and appreciated." Maria, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. "If you really want change, you need to listen to us, not just today, but in the future." David nodded, his eyes sincere. "I will listen, Maria. I need you to help create change. I can't do this alone." The atmosphere gradually calmed down. Although there was still skepticism in the eyes of some, the majority of employees began to feel some hope. Maria and Alex looked at each other, then at David, as if considering. "I'll wait and see what you can do," Alex said, his voice still firm, but less confrontational. "Me too," Maria added. "But I hope you remember that change is not just about words." David smiled, feeling that he had made the first step forward. He knows that the journey ahead will not be easy, but he is ready to face all challenges. Because this isn't just about fixing the company. It's about rediscovering the person he once was, an empathetic leader who cared about those around him. David Green's real journey has only just begun. David Green returns to the position of CEO of GreenTech with a completely new spirit. After his identity was revealed and facing mixed reactions from his employees, he realized that change requires not only willpower, but also patience and determination from everyone. GreenTech cannot change with promises alone, but must with specific and meaningful actions. In the first week after the incident at the suburban branch, David called a company-wide meeting. For the first time, he frankly admitted mistakes in his management style. During the meeting, he shared his experience as a cleaner and what he learned about the lives and difficulties of employees. He did not hide his regrets and affirmed his commitment to reform the company from the roots. "We have lost the core values that I promised when founding GreenTech," David said in a deep voice. "I'm sorry about that. But from today, together, we will rebuild Green Tech, a place where everyone is respected and appreciated. David launched his reform campaign by focusing on problems he witnessed firsthand during his time as a cleaner. First, he issued a policy of full pay for all overtime hours and set up a monitoring system to ensure no one was forced to work overtime, contrary to regulations. Employees like Alex now no longer have to worry about being exploited. Next, David improved employee benefits. He increased vacation time, improved health insurance, and established an emergency fund for employees in need. Maria, the single mother who inspired him, was one of the first people to receive support from the foundation when Ethan needed medical treatment. David also conducts employee listening sessions across the company. Instead of assigning this task to middle managers, he directly participates, listens, and discusses with employees at all levels. These conversations not only help him better understand existing problems, but also build trust between leaders and employees. "We never thought you really cared about us," one employee said during the meeting. "But now, we see that he is making an effort to change." Not only improving policies, David also focuses on changing company culture. He encouraged transparency and accountability in management while eliminating disrespectful behavior or abuse of power. Paul, the suburban branch manager, was required to attend a management training course and had to demonstrate that he could change his leadership style. Managers who do not meet the new standards are replaced. To strengthen engagement, David organizes internal events, such as family days, where employees can bring their families to visit the company and participate in fun activities. This helps people feel like Green Tech is not just a workplace, but also a community. Maria smiled happily when she saw Ethan happily playing with other children at the festival. "Green Tech is no longer a cold machine," Maria told David during one meeting. "Thank you for making it a place worth giving back to." David's reforms not only improve the lives of employees, but also bring sustainable development to Green Tech. Productivity increases when employees feel appreciated and motivated. Creative ideas appear more thanks to a positive and open working environment. Green Tech also attracts new talent, thanks to its reputation as a company that cares about its employees. Customers and partners also appreciate this change, seeing Green Tech as a role model in the sustainable technology industry. A year after the start of the reform, David stood on stage at Green Tech's founding celebration. In front of him were hundreds of employees who had accompanied him on this challenging journey. He looked at the crowd, feeling overwhelmed with gratitude. "When I started this journey, I thought I was looking for solutions for the company," David said, his voice filled with emotion. "But what I really found were valuable lessons about humanity. I learned that an organization is not built from numbers or strategies, but from the people who make it up." David stopped, his eyes scanning familiar faces. "I learned that empathy and appreciation not only help a company grow, but also make people's lives more meaningful. We not only work to make a living, but also to create value and make the world a better place." The whole hall echoed with bustling applause. In the crowd, Maria and Ethan smiled and looked up at the stage. Alex, now a team leader in his department, nodded in agreement. Green Tech isn't just David's company anymore. It's become everyone's home. David Green's journey is a clear demonstration that understanding and appreciating each individual in an organization not only changes company culture, but also makes a huge difference in people's lives. And with those lessons, Green Tech continues to grow, not only because of its advanced technology, but also because of the human values that have been restored and nurtured.